cameras flashing, voices overlapping, and an audience holding its breath. What started as a routine Love and Hip Hop Atlanta reunion taping spiraled into a spectacle nobody saw coming. In a move that left fans, castmates, and even production staff stunned, Rasheeda stood up, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak, and declared she was done. Not just done with Kirk, not just done with Jasmine's endless shadow, but done with the entire franchise that had made her a household name. Right there, live on stage, Rasheeda announced she was quitting Love and Hip Hop, and she did not walk away quietly. She pulled back the curtain, pointing fingers at Kirk, exposing Jasmine, and even calling out Mona Scott herself, accusing her of orchestrating years of exploitation and betrayal for the sake of ratings. The air in the studio shifted instantly. Security guards edged forward, while the cast froze, unsure if they were watching real life or another twisted storyline. Kirk's face drained of color, Jasmine's eyes darted nervously toward the cameras, and Mona tried to signal the crew to cut, but it was too late. Rasheeda leaned into her microphone, her voice cracking yet steady, unleashing years of bottled-up pain in front of millions. "Y'all been playing with my marriage, my family, and my name for a paycheck," she shouted. "But tonight, I'm exposing everything." Gasps echoed across the room. Fans online erupted in real time, and social media timelines lit up with disbelief. Some begged her not to leave, others praised her bravery, and many demanded answers. What secrets had Kirk and Jasmine been hiding, and how deep did Mona Scott's involvement really go? As Rasheeda stormed off stage, tears streaking down her face, yet her head held high, the Love and Hip Hop empire shook to its core. This wasn't scripted drama. This wasn't edited for shock value. This was raw, live, and unfiltered. And the fallout was just beginning. Under the blinding stage lights, the reunion had started like every other season's explosive finale, with cast members trading jabs and the audience leaning in for drama. But nobody, not even the most seasoned producer in the control room, was ready for what Rasheeda was about to unleash. Her eyes, glistening with both fury and exhaustion, darted across the room from Kirk to Jasmine to Mona. She had sat through years of accusations, humiliations, and half-truths, swallowing her pride to keep the family and the Frost brand intact. But tonight, something inside her snapped. Her voice sliced through the room, trembling but undeniable. "I can't do this no more. Not for the cameras, not for the fans, not even for the money. I'm finished." The audience roared with gasps, the cast froze, and even Kirk looked like the ground had been yanked from under him. The tension was unbearable. Jasmine shifted uncomfortably in her chair, the smirk she often wore wiped clean off her face. Her hands twisted in her lap, betraying nerves she tried to hide. Kirk attempted to interject, his usual calm facade faltering. "Babe, come on, don't do this here," he pleaded, his voice a mix of desperation and fear. But Rasheeda wasn't listening. She stood, pulling her microphone closer. "Nah, Kirk, I've done it your way for too long, smiling through pain, acting like your mistakes were my burden to carry. Tonight, the world gone, see the truth, every piece of it." Gasps spread like wildfire. Mona, seated just off stage with a headset, motioned frantically to cut the cameras. But the crew was frozen, caught between their boss and the goldmine unraveling in front of them. Fans in the live audience began screaming, some chanting Rasheeda's name in support, others shouting accusations at Kirk. The energy turned chaotic, like the room itself had split in two. Rasheeda pointed toward Jasmine, her voice sharp as a blade. "You sat there, season after season, playing the victim, like I'm the villain in your little story. But you know the truth, Jasmine. You know what really went down, and you know the lies y'all been spreading to keep this circus running." Jasmine's mouth opened, then shut, like she was choking on words she couldn't say. The silence on her end only fueled the audience's frenzy. Phones shot up into the air, fans recording every second, uploading live streams before security could even think about stepping in. Twitter and Instagram began exploding in real time. Hashtags like hashtag #RASHEEDA quits and hashtag exposed flooding timelines before the producers could contain the situation. Kirk tried again, rising halfway from his seat, his voice breaking. "Rasheeda, let's take this backstage, please. You don't want to do this out here, not like this." But she spun on him, her tears now streaming freely. "Backstage is where the lies live, Kirk. Behind closed doors where you promise me change, then run back to the same mess that broke us apart in the first place. I'm tired of being humiliated, tired of carrying the weight of your choices." The crowd gasped again, their eyes bouncing between husband and wife like a live tennis match. Carly Red, always quick to stir the pot, leaned forward with wide eyes, whispering into her mic. "Oh, this is it, y'all. This is history right here." Her commentary only heightened the tension as the room buzzed with disbelief. Mona Scott finally stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor cracking under the pressure. "Rasheeda, I need you to calm down. Let's handle this professionally." But Rasheeda snapped her head toward her, her voice icy. "Professionally? Mona, you've made millions off my pain. You turned my marriage into a storyline, my heartbreak into entertainment. And every time I cried, you made sure the cameras were rolling. Don't you dare talk to me about professionalism." The entire studio erupted in shouts and applause. Some fans booed Mona, others cheered Rasheeda. And the cast sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or watch the empire they'd built begin to crumble in front of them. Suddenly, Jasmine found her voice, her tone defensive but shaky. "Don't put this all on me, Rasheeda. You knew what Kirk was doing, and you stayed. You let the world paint me as the homewrecker while you kept smiling like nothing was wrong. Don't act like you didn't play a part in this too." Gasps rang out once more, and Rasheeda's head whipped toward Jasmine. "You really want to go there? You think this is about me staying? I stayed for my kids, for my family, for the life we built. But you," she jabbed a finger at Jasmine, "you knew he was married. You knew what you were doing. And you went along with it anyway because the cameras were rolling and you wanted fame." Jasmine's face flushed crimson as fans in the audience shouted insults in her direction. Tears welled in her eyes, but she held her ground, mumbling, "You don't know everything." Kirk dropped his face into his hands, muttering under his breath, "This is getting out of control." But Rasheeda wasn't done. She turned back to Mona, her voice shaking but firm. "You created this mess. You put us all in situations to fight, to hurt each other, just so you could sell another season. But tonight, I'm pulling the plug. I'm not your puppet anymore. Love and hip-hop can survive without me, but I'll survive better without it." The studio went silent for a beat, the weight of her words settling over everyone like a heavy curtain. Then, as if on cue, the audience erupted again, chanting her name louder, their voices clashing with the chaos unraveling on stage. Rasheeda's chest heaved as she dropped the microphone to her side, the sound of the crowd echoing around her. She looked at Kirk one last time, her face a mixture of heartbreak and resolve. "You broke me once, but you won't break me again." With that, she turned, her heels clicking against the stage floor as she stormed toward the exit. Security scrambled to follow her, while the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second. The live audience was on its feet, half in shock, half in celebration. And social media was already ablaze with theories, memes, and raw footage. The Love and Hip Hop reunion had turned into a battlefield, and the war wasn't close to over. As Rasheeda disappeared backstage, Kirk collapsed back into his seat, Jasmine looked pale and cornered, and Mona barked orders at her staff, demanding the feed be cut. But it was too late. The genie was out of the bottle, and the world was already talking. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and the Frost family was left divided. Yet somewhere deep in the chaos, the sense lingered that Rasheeda wasn't finished. She had dropped a bomb, but the fallout had only just begun, and everyone watching knew this was only the beginning of something far bigger, darker, and more destructive than anyone imagined. The cameras backstage were still rolling, even if Mona had barked for them to be cut. Rasheeda stormed down the narrow hallway, her heels echoing like gunshots on the floor, makeup smeared from tears but her head unshaken. Crew members tried to intercept her, holding out hands and whispering calm down, but she shoved past them, her voice cracking through the air. "Don't touch me. Y'all ain't stopping me tonight. The world deserves to know the truth." She grabbed a bottle of water from the catering table, twisted off the cap with trembling hands, and gulped it down as though to steady herself. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, adrenaline flooding every inch of her body. She wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after years of silence. Meanwhile, back on stage, the cast sat stunned in frozen poses. Young Jock leaned over to Carly, whispering under his breath, "This is bad. This is real bad. Mona ain't gonna recover from this one." Carly, wide-eyed with glee, smirked and muttered into her mic, "Bad for them, but good for ratings." Her voice carried, and the audience caught it, laughing and booing all at once. Kirk was still hunched over, his palms pressed to his face, muttering incoherently. He looked broken, his shoulders sagging like the weight of the world had finally collapsed on him. Jasmine sat rigid in her chair, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Her lips trembled, but she fought to keep her chin lifted, knowing every eye in the room was drilling into her. She whispered to herself, "I didn't sign up for this," but deep down, she knew she had. Mona reappeared in front of the cameras, her headset hanging lopsided, her patience gone. "Cut it. Cut all of it." We're done here. Her voice cracked with frustration, but the crew was hesitant. One young cameraman looked up at her with wide eyes and stammered, "It's already live, Ms. Scott. The feed's out there. Everyone's seen it." Mona's mouth dropped open in disbelief before she hissed, "Then shut it down now." The control room buzzed with panic, red lights flashing as the producers scrambled to salvage what they could. But the damage was done. Within minutes, clips had already gone viral. TikToks had sprouted like wildfire, and fans across the globe were dissecting every word Rasheeda had spoken. Backstage, Kirk finally found his strength to rise and follow Rasheeda, brushing past security. "Rasheeda, please, just talk to me for 1 minute," he begged, his voice raw with desperation. She spun around to face him, her eyes blazing. "Talk. After all these years, you want to talk now? Where was this energy when I cried myself to sleep? Where was this when I begged you to choose your family over your ego?" Her voice cracked, but she held steady, glaring at him with every ounce of betrayal she'd carried. Kirk reached out, but she stepped back, shaking her head. "You don't get to touch me, not anymore. Not after everything." Jasmine, sensing her name would be dragged deeper into the chaos, tried to slip quietly off stage, but Carly spotted her and yelled, "Oh no, you don't. You started this mess, Jasmine, and you ain't about to sneak away while the fire burns." The audience erupted again, shouting insults and throwing accusations. Jasmine froze like a deer in headlights, then snapped back, "Y'all blame me for everything. But Kirk made his choices. He lied to me too." Her words echoed, and the crowd gasped. The revelation sliced through the noise like a blade. "What do you mean he lied to you?" Carly pressed, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Jasmine stuttered, her voice dropping low. He told me things about their marriage, things that made me believe he wasn't really with her." The audience exploded again, and Jock clapped his hands dramatically, saying, "Man, this just keeps getting worse." Backstage, Kirk heard the commotion spilling over and turned, shouting down the hallway, "Jasmine, stop talking. Stop it right now." His voice was hoarse, panicked, desperate to shut her down. But it was too late. Jasmine's mic was still on, and every word spilled into the broadcast. "He told me," Rasheeda knew, "that it was just for the cameras, that they weren't really together." Gasps filled the room, cast members covering their mouths in shock. Rasheeda's knees buckled slightly, her back hitting the cold wall behind her. She let out a broken laugh, half fury, half heartbreak. "So that's what you told her, Kirk? That I was just part of a storyline? That my marriage, my life, was a prop for you to play with?" Her voice rose, trembling with rage. Kirk's face drained of blood, his hands trembling as he reached for her again. "Rasheeda, it wasn't like that. I swear, it wasn't." But she cut him off, her voice a thunderclap. "Don't you dare lie again. Not to me, not to them, not to the world. You humiliated me enough." The cameras caught it all, and fans online were losing their minds. Twitter threads blew up with theories. Was Kirk's marriage to Rasheeda just for show? Had Mona orchestrated this web of lies from the start? And where did Jasmine really fit into the puzzle? Mona's temper finally snapped. She stormed down the hallway, planting herself between Rasheeda and Kirk. "Enough, both of you. This is not how we handle business. Y'all are dragging this show through the mud." Rasheeda stepped forward, her voice cutting Mona down like a knife. "Business? You think this is about business? This is about my life, my family, my pain. And you sat there, Mona, cashing checks off it like I was a pawn in your little empire. Well, I'm done being your pawn." The tension was unbearable, the weight of her words echoing in every corner of the studio. Fans chanted Rasheeda's name louder, their voices vibrating through the walls, shaking the very foundation of the love and hip-hop empire. Mona's face hardened, her jaw tight. "If you walk away like this, don't think you can come crawling back when the world forgets you." Rasheeda's eyes narrowed, her voice low but deadly. "Forget me, baby. I built myself before this show, and I'll build myself again after. The only thing the world gon' forget is how much they trusted you." The room fell silent for a moment, the only sound the clicking of Rasheeda's heels as she turned her back once again. Security flanked her, but this time no one tried to stop her. The queen had spoken, and her empire was crumbling behind her. The reunion stage sat in stunned silence as the feed finally cut. But the damage wasn't done in silence. Across the globe, fans typed furiously, influencers went live, and gossip blogs crashed under the weight of traffic. Everyone wanted to know, was Rasheeda gone for good? Had Mona finally lost control of her crown jewel? And most importantly, what secrets were still buried under years of manipulation, lies, and betrayal? Because one thing was certain, this story wasn't over. It had only just begun. The hallway outside the studio had turned into a battlefield of voices, cameras, and chaos. Paparazzi who had been waiting by the back entrance rushed inside the moment they heard shouting. Flashes lit up the dim corridor as Rasheeda, still wiping tears from her face, tried to push forward. Her security detail formed a wall, but microphones were already being shoved in her direction. Rasheeda, are you really quitting? Did Kirk lie about your marriage? Did Mona force you into this storyline? Questions flew at her like bullets. She stopped, her voice trembling but strong enough to cut through the frenzy. Yes, I'm quitting. Yes, Kirk lied. And yes, Mona knew everything. This ain't just reality TV anymore, it's exploitation. Gasps echoed down the hallway, even from staff who thought they had seen it all. The weight of her words was undeniable, and the press smelled blood in the water. Back on stage, the cast scrambled to process what had just been exposed. Carly Red, never one to miss a beat, snatched her mic and shouted toward the cameras. Y'all hearing this? She said Mona knew everything. This ain't no reality show. This is a setup. The audience erupted again. Some booing Mona, others chanting Rasheeda's name louder and louder. Young Jock shook his head, his voice low but caught by the mic anyway. Man, if Rasheeda walks, half the fans walk with her. This might be the end. Spice, seated across from him, leaned in with her Jamaican accent, thick and sharp. No man, this just the beginning. You see, the truth always come out, and tonight, it burned down the whole stage. Her words sent chills through the room, the audience reacting like they were watching a church sermon instead of a reunion. Kirk, still pale and trembling, tried to regain control. He stood, his voice hoarse but loud enough to carry. Y'all don't know the whole story. Don't sit here and crucify me without knowing the facts. His plea fell flat, drowned by boos and jeers from the audience. Carly shot back instantly. Then tell us, Kirk. Tell the world, or sit down and stop wasting our time. Jasmine, shaking but defiant, jumped in before he could respond. The truth is, Kirk played us both. He made promises to me, promises to her, and in the end, he only cared about himself and his image. Don't act like you're the victim, Kirk cause. We both know better. Her voice cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks, but she pressed on. I was young, I was dumb, but I believed you when you told me you weren't really married. You made me the villain, and now you want to play innocent. The crowd gasped as Rasheeda's voice, carried by a mic someone had left on backstage, came booming over the speakers. Keep talking, Jasmine. Tell them all how he promised you the world while I was at home raising his kids. The audience screamed, half in shock, half in wild excitement. Mona shot daggers at her crew, realizing they had failed to mute Rasheeda's mic. It was too late. Every raw word was already live, and the fans were eating it up like fire. Social media feeds crashed under the surge of live updates, clips being replayed thousands of times within minutes. Hashtags like #KirkExposed and #Mona manipulates began trending worldwide. Backstage, Rasheeda leaned against the wall, her body trembling from both adrenaline and exhaustion. Her phone buzzed non-stop messages from friends, family, even fans who had somehow found her number. She ignored them all, her eyes fixed on the monitor showing the live feed still rolling. Kirk was on stage now, pacing back and forth, sweat pouring down his face. You don't understand, he yelled at Jasmine. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Mona wanted drama. She wanted a storyline, and I gave her one. The audience gasped as Kirk turned his accusations toward Mona. Don't sit there and act like you innocent. Mona, you pushed me to do this. You told me to make it messy. You ruined my marriage just to keep your ratings up. The room exploded, everyone talking at once. Mona's eyes widened, her lips tightening into a thin line. That's enough, Kirk, she snapped, her voice cutting like steel. You made your own choices. Don't you dare pin this on me. But Kirk wasn't backing down. He stepped toward her, his voice breaking. I made mistakes, but you fed off them. You encouraged them. You told me, the messier, the better. So don't stand here now and pretend you're clean. You dirtier than all of us. The audience gasped so loud it nearly drowned his words. Fans on social media went wild. Screenshots of Kirk pointing at Mona spreading like wildfire. Jasmine clutched her mic tighter, her voice trembling. So you admit it. You admit you lied to me, lied to her, all for a storyline. Kirk's shoulders slumped as if the weight of the truth had finally crushed him. His voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible. Yeah, I admit it. The crowd screamed, fans jumping to their feet as decades of rumors were finally confirmed. Carly fell back into her seat, laughing hysterically, her voice carrying through the chaos. Lord have mercy, we need a lawyer right here on stage. Young Jock covered his face, muttering, "This man just buried himself." Rasheeda, watching from backstage, shook her head, her voice breaking into the live feed once again. "Thank you, finally. After all these years, you finally said it." Her sobs echoed, raw and unfiltered, and fans cried along with her through their screens. This wasn't just entertainment anymore, it was tragedy, betrayal, and revelation rolled into one. And as the cameras captured Kirk collapsing into his seat, broken and exposed, the entire love and hip-hop empire teetered on the edge of collapse. The reunion was supposed to bring closure, but instead it had ripped the lid off every buried secret. The world was watching, and there was no turning back. And in that moment, one chilling truth sank in. Rasheeda's war wasn't just against Kirk anymore. It was against Mona, the show, and the empire that had fed off her pain for years. And she wasn't walking away quietly. She was ready to burn it all down. The studio air had become heavier than smoke, the kind that clings to your lungs and refuses to let go. Rasheeda's voice still echoed in the ears of everyone present, and the walls themselves seemed to hold on to her last words. Fans online were glued to their phones and TVs, typing so furiously that even trending algorithms struggled to keep up. Every few seconds a new clip, a new meme, a new shocked reaction spread like wildfire across social media platforms. But inside the building, where the tension was no longer just entertainment but palpable reality, the chaos grew thicker by the second. Kirk sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. Sweat rolled down his temples, staining his collar. The admission he had just made that he had lied, manipulated, and turned his marriage into a storyline was something he could never take back. The words had left his lips, and now they lived forever in digital stone. For the first time in years, the unshakable Kirk Frost looked like a man defeated. Not by another man, not by the public, but by his own choices. Jasmine shifted uncomfortably, her fingers digging into the strap of her purse as though holding on for dear life. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, each breath shallow. She had dreamed of stardom, of turning her drama into recognition, but this was not the spotlight she wanted. The audience's eyes pierced through her, and every whisper felt like a dagger. She could hear fragments of sentences floating around home. Liar played her role. The shame mixed with fear, but anger fueled her too. She leaned into her mic, her voice breaking but audible enough for every corner of the room. "I was used. Both of us were, and now everybody wanna paint me like I'm the monster. But ask yourselves, who benefits the most from all of this?" Her eyes darted directly to Mona. The crowd roared, some in agreement, others booing louder. Mona's face hardened like marble, her patience gone, her empire crumbling in front of her. She stepped forward, pulling her headset off with one hand, the other holding the mic like a weapon. "You little girls love to point fingers when you get caught in your own mess. Jasmine, you knew exactly what you were doing. Don't try to blame me because you wanted to be famous." Her tone was sharp, but for the first time, her voice carried a tremor. Carly Red laughed, the kind of laugh that made everything worse, echoing like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, this is better than any season finale I've ever been in." Mona, Jasmine, Kirk, Rasheeda all just wrote the biggest episode in history. She clapped her hands dramatically, and the audience booed and cheered at once, the energy so chaotic it felt alive. Young Jock leaned back in his chair, covering his mouth as though watching a train wreck he couldn't stop. "This is career-ending," he muttered, shaking his head slowly. Backstage, Rasheeda's chest heaved with both rage and release. For years, she had kept the pain inside, letting the cameras tell only fragments of her truth. Now the world was hearing it raw, unfiltered. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, her voice hoarse but steady. "They wanted me to break. They wanted me to crumble for ratings. But I'm not breaking anymore. I'm taking control." Her phone buzzed again, this time with a call from her mother, but she ignored it. She needed to finish this fight on her own terms. On stage, Kirk finally stood again, his voice quivering but louder than before. "You think this is all me? You think I wanted my kids, my wife, my name dragged through the dirt? I did what I had to do because Mona threatened to cut me out. She said no mess, no screen time, and y'all know once you out the storyline, you out the checks." His voice cracked, but he pressed on. "I played the game, and yeah, I messed up. But don't act like y'all didn't know this game was rigged from the start." Gasps echoed, and the audience reacted like a wave. Some screamed in shock, others booed, while phones rose higher, recording every desperate syllable. Spice leaned forward, shaking her head slowly, her Caribbean accent cutting sharp. "So you saying you sell your wife for money? You sell your life like cheap soap opera? That's what you call being a man?" The audience clapped and cheered, siding with her words. Kirk's shoulders sagged under the weight of judgment, his lips trembling as if every ounce of pride was slipping away. Mona's patience finally broke. She stepped fully onto the stage, her heels clicking with authority, her eyes blazing. Enough of this circus. Kirk, you're done blaming me. Jasmine, you're done painting yourself as a victim. Rasheeda wants out. Fine, let her go. But don't think for 1 second this empire falls because of one woman. Love and hip-hop existed before you, and it'll exist after you. Her words were delivered with venom, but the audience didn't clap. Instead, a low murmur spread, like doubt crawling through the crowd. Rasheeda's voice cut through from backstage, carried by the still hot mic she hadn't dropped. Then tell them, Mona. Tell them how many lives you've ruined for ratings. Tell them how many families you broke apart. You built your empire on the backs of our tears, and tonight it crumbles. The studio erupted again. The chant of Rasheeda, pounding like drums. Security scrambled, but no one wanted to be the one to silence her. Fans in the live audience cried out in support, some even standing with fists in the air. Cast members exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to speak up or stay silent. Young Jock finally stood, his voice serious for once. If Rasheeda done, I'm done too. I can't sit here and keep pretending this ain't destroying us. The audience screamed in shock. Phones recording his declaration. Carly gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. Jock, you serious right now? He nodded, his eyes locked on the cameras. Serious as a heart attack. If she goes, I go. This ain't entertainment no more. This is blood, sweat, and betrayal. His words rippled like a stone thrown into water, shaking the cast, the audience, and Mona herself. Mona's face paled, realizing control was slipping faster than she could grab it back. Don't be foolish, Jock. You think you walking away from this franchise is gonna make you a hero. You'll be forgotten in a week. But her voice lacked conviction. Jock smirked, shaking his head. Forgotten, baby. The only one about to be forgotten is you when the world finally sees what you've been doing. The audience roared in approval, drowning Mona's rebuttal. Jasmine rose from her chair, her legs shaky but her resolve firm. She looked directly into the cameras, her voice steadier than anyone expected. I've been painted as the villain for too long, but tonight, I'm telling the truth. Kirk lied, Mona manipulated, and I was used. If y'all hate me for it, so be it. But at least I'm done being silent. She dropped her mic to the floor, the sound echoing like a gunshot through the studio. The crowd gasped, then exploded with cheers. Backstage, Rasheeda's tears had dried. A strange calm washed over her as she watched the monitors. This was no longer just her fight, it had become a rebellion. Castmates were questioning the empire. Fans were seeing the strings behind the puppet show, and the queen of love and hip-hop, Mona Scott, stood trembling in the storm. Rasheeda whispered to herself, it's over. It's really over. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger, something that would leave scars, not just on her family, but on the entire franchise itself. And as the chants from the audience grew louder, as phones buzzed with breaking news alerts, and as tears streamed down faces both on stage and off, one undeniable fact settled over everyone in that room. Love and hip-hop would never be the same again. The chaos inside the studio had spilled far beyond its walls. By now, outside on the street, a sea of fans had gathered, alerted by live streams and trending news vans lined the block. Their cameras pointed toward the building as security tried to contain the surge of people chanting Rasheeda's name. It felt less like a television taping and more like a protest, an uprising against years of silence and manipulation. Police were called to hold the crowd back, but their sirens only added to the noise and frenzy. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. The stage lights seemed harsher, hotter, as if exposing every secret still buried in the cast's hearts. Mona Scott stood tall, but her composure cracked with every passing second. She clutched her mic, her voice ringing through the pandemonium. You think you're heroes, all of you, turning on me. Don't forget, I made you. I gave you a platform, gave you fame, gave you a lifestyle none of you would have without me. Don't sit here and pretend like you didn't sign up for this. Her words echoed like a sermon, but the audience wasn't moved. Instead, they booed, loud and relentless, drowning out every syllable. Young Jock stepped forward, his face dark with frustration. Made us. You exploited us. There's a difference. You fed off our pain, our breakups, our kids crying on camera. You turned us into caricatures, not people. He threw his hands up, gesturing toward the audience. Look at them. They don't see me, they don't see Rasheeda, they don't even see Kirk or Jasmine, they see characters in your little soap opera. He turned back to her, his voice cracking. But we bleed, Mona. We cry for real. And tonight, people finally see it. The audience erupted with applause, stomping their feet so hard the stage rattled. Carly Red, ever the opportunist, gasped loudly, her eyes sparkling with tears she wasn't even trying to hide. I've been saying this for years, y'all. I've been screaming, but nobody listened. Mona treated us like puppets, and we danced for the strings. She sobbed dramatically, but her words, exaggerated or not, pierced the room with truth. Mona's lips pressed into a thin line as she scanned the cast, realizing the tide had turned against her. But before she could speak, Rasheeda's voice carried once again from backstage, the hot mic betraying Mona's grip on control. Tell them how you made me choose between my dignity and my job, Mona. Tell them how you threatened to cut me off if I didn't sit there and smile through Kirk's cheating scandals. The audience gasped as Rasheeda emerged from the shadows, her presence commanding, her face streaked with dried tears but her chin held high. The crowd roared, chanting her name louder and louder, a wave crashing against Mona's authority. Rasheeda walked to center stage, every step deliberate, every second an act of defiance. She picked up the mic Jasmine had dropped and held it to her lips. You built an empire, Mona, but you built it on broken hearts. Mine, Jasmine's, Yandy's, so many of us. You think we owe you for giving us a platform, but you owe us for bleeding on your stage. She pointed toward the cameras, her eyes blazing. And now the world sees the truth. The studio exploded with cheers, the chant of Rasheeda, Rasheeda, drowning out everything else. Mona tried to interject, but the sound was swallowed by the wave of noise. Jasmine stood, her voice trembling but determined. She's right. I let myself be used, but I'm done too. Tonight, I'm free. Tears streaked her face as she turned toward Rasheeda. I know I hurt you. I can't erase it. But Kirk and Mona used me too. And I won't carry the blame alone anymore. For a moment, the air shifted. Rasheeda and Jasmine locked eyes, two women bound by betrayal, both victims of a machine larger than them. The crowd fell silent, sensing something seismic unfolding. Rasheeda's lip trembled as she spoke. I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I see you. And I know now. This ain't just you versus me. This was bigger. This was always bigger. Jasmine sobbed openly, nodding. The audience wept with them, the rawness of the moment cutting through years of scripted drama. Kirk, watching the two women unite in truth, looked like he'd been gutted. His shoulders slumped, his hands trembling as he reached for the mic. I messed up. I destroyed the people I loved the most. I don't deserve forgiveness, not from either of you. His voice cracked, tears welling in his eyes. But please, don't let this be the end of us. Don't let Mona take everything we built. Rasheeda turned to him slowly, her face unreadable. You already let her take it. You handed it to her when you sold us out. Her voice shook, but her resolve was unbreakable. But you right about one thing. This ain't the end. This is the beginning. Of me, without you. Of me, without this show. Of me, finally free. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, some crying, some screaming, all united in the weight of her declaration. Mona tried once more to assert herself, her voice sharp and commanding. You think walking away makes you free? You'll be forgotten. The show will move on, and the world will forget this little tantrum. But her words sounded hollow, drowned by boos from the audience. Fans shouted back, we stand with Rasheeda, and cancel love and hip-hop. The noise was deafening, the tide irreversible. Suddenly, a crew member rushed onto stage, whispering frantically into Mona's ear, her face drained of color as she listened. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Carly leaned forward, whispering into her mic, what's happening? What's she saying? The crew member pulled back, but the damage was done. Mona's hands shook as she tried to speak. They shut the feed down. The network pulled it. The crowd gasped, cast members froze, and Rasheeda smiled grimly. Too late. The truth is already out there. And she was right. Outside the building, live streams continued. Fans shouted updates into their phones, and gossip blogs flooded with headlines. Rasheeda quits live. Kirk admits affair was scripted. Mona exposed by cast. The empire was crumbling in real time, brick by brick, under the weight of its own lies. Backstage, police held back fans chanting Rasheeda's name like a rally cry. Cars honked in support, and strangers who had never cared for reality TV suddenly tuned in. Curious about the scandal tearing down an empire, the Frost family's pain had become the world's spectacle. But for the first time, Rasheeda controlled the narrative. She had chosen truth over silence, and the world had listened. The stage sat in stunned silence, broken only by the chants still echoing from outside. Mona dropped her mic, her face pale, her empire slipping through her fingers. Rasheeda held her head high, walking off stage as the audience cheered louder, their voices following her like a wave of liberation. Jasmine followed close behind, wiping tears but finally unburdened. Young Jock and Spice exchanged glances, nodding silently before standing to leave as well. One by one, the cast began to walk out, leaving Mona alone on stage, the queen of Empire collapsing around her. And as the cameras captured her final, trembling expression, one thought became clear. Love and hip-hop wasn't just shaken, it was shattered. And Rasheeda's decision to walk away had lit the match that set it all on fire. The roar outside the studio grew louder, like a storm swelling without end. Thousands of fans were now pressed against barricades, chanting in unison, waving homemade signs scribbled with words like "We stand with Rasheeda and cancel the lies." Helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights sweeping across the crowd as if documenting a historical protest rather than a reality show scandal. Police radios crackled with urgency, but nothing could drown out the chants echoing Rasheeda's name over and over again. Inside, the stage was abandoned, save for Mona Scott, sitting alone in the center. The empire she built reduced to rubble before her eyes. The once confident producer who had orchestrated countless dramatic reunions now looked small, her power slipping like sand between her fingers. She gripped her headset with trembling hands, trying to reach the network executives. "Get me on the phone with them now," she demanded, but the producers looked at her with pity rather than fear. The live feed was gone, the cast had walked out, and the internet had already claimed the story. Back in the dressing room hallway, Rasheeda sat in a folding chair, her shoulders finally lowering after hours of tension. Her phone vibrated non-stop on the counter beside her. Calls from friends, messages from fans, even emails from news outlets begging for interviews. She ignored them all, staring blankly at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was not the broken housewife that millions had pitied for years. She was a fighter, bruised but unbowed, her silence shattered into strength. Jasmine sat across from her, makeup smeared, clutching a tissue in her hand. For once, she wasn't the villain. She was simply human, another casualty of a machine too powerful to stop. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," Jasmine whispered, her voice soft, almost reverent. "I thought you'd just keep going, like always." Rasheeda met her gaze, her eyes heavy but sharp. "I kept going for too long. I thought staying meant strength. I thought keeping quiet meant protecting my family. But silence, just let them play me. Play us." She leaned forward, her voice trembling. "No more silence." Jasmine's lip quivered, her tears fresh again. "I'm sorry, Rasheeda. I know, sorry, don't fix it, but I am. I was lost. I was selfish, and I let Mona make me believe lies. I should have walked away too." For the first time in years, Rasheeda didn't respond with anger. She sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Sorry, don't fix it. But truth does. And tonight, we gave them the truth." The dressing room door slammed open, startling both women. Young Jock barged in, followed by Spice and Carly. Jock's face was lit with adrenaline, his phone in his hand showing live feeds from outside. "Yo, y'all don't even know what's happening out there. This ain't just a scandal. This is a movement. People marching with your name, Rasheeda. They calling it the love and hip-hop revolution." His voice carried a mix of shock and excitement. Carly, never one to miss the chance to dramatize, clasped her hands dramatically. "Baby, you just started a war. Mona can't fight the whole world." She plopped onto the couch, wiping fake tears. "I told y'all, one day the truth was gonna come out. I didn't know it would be today." Spice nodded firmly, her accent cutting sharp through the room. "This is bigger than you, Rasheeda. This is about all of us. How long we let Mona run our lives for her pockets. Tonight, you show them we not slaves to her empire." Her words were met with murmurs of agreement, the gravity of the moment sinking into everyone present. Meanwhile, Kirk stood in the corner of another hallway, away from the group. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he scrolled through his phone. Every headline had his name plastered in bold letters. Kirk Frost exposed. Marriage was a storyline. The man who lied to both women. He wanted to disappear, to vanish from the narrative he had fueled. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call from his son. His throat tightened as he answered. "Hey, yeah, I know you seen it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." His voice cracked as tears streamed down his cheeks, unseen by the cameras for once. Back on stage, Mona tried one last desperate attempt to salvage control. She picked up her mic, speaking to the empty chairs as if the cast were still there. "You'll regret this. Every last one of you. You think the fans will follow you without me. You think you can survive without this machine." Her voice echoed hollowly across the vacant stage. The audience had long dispersed, but cameras still recorded her unraveling, a queen raging as her throne burned beneath her. The sound of footsteps interrupted her tirade. Rasheeda, flanked by Jasmine and Jock, walked back onto the stage. The crowd outside roared as they caught sight of her through the big screen monitors, chanting her name like a rally cry. Rasheeda raised her mic, her voice calm but resolute. "We don't need your machine anymore, Mona. We don't need your lies. The world has heard us, and they believe us. You built an empire on our pain, but tonight, we take it back." Jock stepped forward, his deep voice booming. "If she goes, we all go. You can't run a show without us. And the people won't watch without her." He gestured toward Rasheeda, the chants outside growing louder in agreement. Mona's face contorted with fury. "You ungrateful," but Rasheeda cut her off sharply. "No, Mona, we're free." The crowd outside erupted as if they had heard her directly. The barricades rattled as fans chanted louder, "Free, free, free." The sound shook the studio walls, drowning out Mona's protests. In that moment, Rasheeda knew the truth. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every woman who had been silenced, every man who had been manipulated, every family torn apart for ratings. She had lit the fire, and the people were fanning the flames. Police reports later revealed that the protest outside swelled to nearly 5,000 people before midnight. Social media servers struggled under the weight of millions of posts. News anchors cut into broadcasts to cover the reality TV uprising. And Rasheeda, sitting quietly in her dressing room as the noise rumbled outside, finally let herself exhale. For the first time in years, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever. But deep down, she also knew this war wasn't over. Mona was too powerful to go quietly, and Kirk's betrayal still lingered like an open wound. The world might be on her side tonight, but tomorrow, the battles would continue. Contracts, lawsuits, smear campaigns, all of it loomed on the horizon. Yet Rasheeda no longer feared it. She had faced her worst humiliation in front of the world, and she had survived. Now, she was ready to fight. And as she closed her eyes, listening to the chants of her name echo like thunder, one thing was clear. The empire of love and hip-hop had fallen, and from its ashes, Rasheeda would rise. By sunrise, the city wore the story like a headline stitched into the sky. Helicopters still thudded across the early light. Traffic crawled past barricades, and the studio block was cordoned off with yellow tape and metal rails. Reporters huddled in damp clusters, breathing steam into their microphones as producers counted down to the next live hit. Overnight, the hashtag had crossed borders. Clips subtitled in Spanish, French, and Arabic racked up millions of views. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided. Inside the building, a low fluorescent buzz filled the empty stage where an empire had cracked. The couch sat skewed, one cushion knocked sideways as if the argument itself had left a dent. Rasheeda arrived early with a hoodie pulled tight, her voice nearly gone from the night before. Her manager had begged her to lay low, but she refused. The network had emailed at 3:10 a.m., then again at 4:02. Then again at 5:41 with a mutual pause statement for her to approve. She hadn't answered. Instead, she walked the length of the stage and stopped where the audience risers began, scanning the seats like they were a battlefield she'd survived. In the dressing room corridor, crew members looked up and fell silent as she passed. No one asked for a selfie. No one dared crack a joke. The mood had shifted. The show had turned from entertainment to evidence. 2 doors down, Jasmine sat on a makeup stool with puffy eyes and a styrofoam cup cooling in her hands. She stared into the mirror as if it were a witness. Mascara streaks ringed her lashes like bruises. When Rasheeda appeared in the doorway, she straightened, unsure whether to stand or apologize or simply vanish. "I'm not here to fight," Rasheeda said, voice hoarse. "I'm here to finish what I started." Jasmine nodded, wiping her face with the back of her wrist. "Then let me help," she whispered, and the words sounded strange even to her. Downstairs, young Jock had already pulled up with Spice, and Carly jammed in the back seat. A shoebox full of old call sheets and printed emails wedged under Jock's arm. "Evidence," he said, patting the box as if it were sacred, "in case they try to say we made it up." The studio guard waved them through with a resigned sigh. Everyone knew something formal was coming. If last night was a detonation, today would be the debris catalog. At 8:07 a.m., Mona Scott swept into the building through a side entrance with counsel on either side, a navy coat over her shoulders like armor. She had already posted a 2-paragraph note at dawn, describing the taping as deeply regrettable and mischaracterized by selective clips. She wanted a private sit-down. The network wanted quiet. The internet wanted blood. She crossed the lobby to the executive conference room, where a long table was laid with bottled water and a bowl of green apples that no one would touch. She adjusted her bracelet, looked straight into a window that doubled as a mirror, and practiced her calm face. It dissolved the second she saw Rasheeda waiting inside with Jock, Spice, Carly, and Jasmine. The shoebox sat squarely on the table between them like a dare. A network VP hovered near the door, chewing his lip. A company lawyer typed with 2 fingers. A publicist stacked printouts of monitoring reports that were already outdated by the time they left the printer tray. The air smelled like copier heat and old carpet. Let's not turn this into a circus, Mona began, hands flat on the table, tone measured. We are all professionals. We've worked together for years. We can handle disagreements without turning marriages into cliffhangers. Jock cut in, tapping the shoebox. Without telling people to escalate or be edited out, he slid a stack of call sheets across the table. Episode Mu y 204 segment notes saying, and I quote, push on Rasheeda's trust issues. Encourage confrontation with Jasmine in retail location. That retail location was her boutique. The fans saw a fight. I saw the invoice. Mona didn't blink. Shooting schedules are not directives for behavior, she said evenly. We capture reality. We don't dictate it. Spice leaned in, elbows on wood. Reality don't come with bullet points, Mona. These say who should cry on cue. She lifted another page, the paper trembling in her hand. And when they don't, you ask them again. The lawyer interjected, smoothing his tie. If there are materials, we can review them in discovery. For now, we need to keep this internal and avoid further reputational damage on all sides. Rasheeda's laugh came out like a scrape. My reputation was your currency. You spent it until there was nothing left. She opened her phone and played a voice memo. The audio thin but clear. A field producer in a van. A whisper made loud by a cheap microphone. Can we get that again? Just give me the line about not recognizing your husband anymore. More tears if you can. The room went quiet. Outside, sirens doppelered past. Jasmine slid a thumb drive across the table. I saved old texts, she said softly. From the story editors. I told them I didn't want to say certain things. They said they'd cut my confession scene if I didn't. She swallowed, hands shaking. I said them anyway. Mona's jaw tightened. You all signed. There are NDA. There are morality clauses. There are edit rights. You can't cherry-pick the parts of the job you like and revolt when the rest feels heavy. Her control voice was back, the manager in her eyes measuring every angle. You are media professionals. You know how this works. How this worked. Rasheeda corrected, past tense. She stood, pushing back her chair with a low scrape. I'm making a statement at noon. No lawyers, no network-approved quotes. I'll tell the truth, and I'll say it was my choice to leave. The publicist shot a glance at the VP, who paled. A truth spoken at noon could erase 3 months of crisis planning by one. If you go out there unscripted, the publicist said carefully, you could expose yourself to litigation. The network's release offers you a clean exit with a goodwill clause. Please consider. Consider who? Jock said. The shareholders, the ad buyers, or the kids who have to watch their mother cry on loop because crying got picked as Mona exhaled, steadying herself. You want to be done? Fine. But do not rewrite history and brand me a villain to save yourselves. I gave you jobs. I gave you visibility. I gave you leverage. You made choices in front of cameras. That's on you. Rasheeda met her eyes without flinching. You gave me a mic. I'm using it now. The noon statement moved outdoors because nothing else could contain it. By 11:30, the sidewalk was packed shoulder to shoulder, a thrum of voices weaving with the rat-a-tat of news choppers. Someone dragged a portable speaker onto the curb and played an old Rasheeda single. A cheer went up when she stepped through the glass doors with a cluster of cast beside her. No riser, no podium. She stood on a milk crate. The city bent toward her. I'm not here to destroy, she began, her voice raw but clear. I'm here to heal. The crowd hushed. For years, I believed I had to choose between privacy and prosperity. I chose my family, then I chose my job, then I chose my silence. Yesterday, I chose the truth. I'm choosing it again today. She lifted her chin toward the lenses. We all made mistakes. We all chased storylines. But no one deserves to be trapped inside a version of themselves that makes someone else money while their real life falls apart. Fans wept openly. Drivers stopped and stood in open car doors to listen. From time to time, a chant swelled and ebbed her name. Then truth, then free, but mostly the city held its breath while she spoke. She did not mention Mona by name. She did not accuse anyone of crimes. She did not burn her past. She simply named what it had cost her and said the bill had come due. Reporters during the Q&A clamored for timelines, for receipts, for whether Kirk had moved out, for whether Jasmine would issue a formal apology. Rasheeda answered with steady restraint. My marriage is private now. My healing is private now. The rest is public because I decided it would be. She passed the mic to Jasmine, who gripped it like it might evaporate, then spoke in a small, even tone that carried somehow anyway. I hurt people. I'm sorry. It doesn't fix it. I hope my next chapter honors the truth instead of chasing views. The humility surprised the crowd. Applause rose, uncertain at first, then strong. Off to the side, Kirk watched with eyes rimmed red. He had not slept. He had drafted 6 notes and deleted all of them. When the mic reached him, he didn't improvise. He read from a folded sheet. I lied for cameras. I lied to myself. I lied to my wife. I'm not asking for forgiveness from y'all. I'm asking for a chance to live like I don't need your applause. He folded the paper again and stepped back, the words hanging like a flag surrendering its wind. By late afternoon, the network issued a revised statement, an indefinite suspension of production pending an internal review. Legal blogs posted explainers about NDAs and forced arbitration. An entertainment union floated a draft for dignity protocols in unscripted TV. Fans organized a charity drive in Rasheeda's honor to support counseling services for families impacted by public scandals. Within 8 hours, it had surpassed its goal and doubled. The movement that began as a shout was learning to speak. Mona countershootled a studio interview at 6 p.m. with one of the big anchors. The lighting was soft, the questions crisp. She framed herself as a steward of messy truth, a chronicler of human contradiction, never the author of harm. Editing reveals patterns that people already live, she said. We don't invent, we condense. When the anchor pressed her on the van audio and the call sheet notes, she didn't blink. That's coverage, she said. Coverage is not coercion. The comments beneath the network's upload split like a river finding 2 mouths. Some defended her with fervor. Some called for her resignation. Everyone agreed they had watched something they could not unsee. That night, the studio crew gathered at a taco truck 2 blocks away, shoulders hunched against the cool air. One grip admitted he had muted his headset when tears hit the floor because he didn't want to hear the word again. A field PA confessed she had started bringing extra tissues in her back pocket and felt ashamed of what that meant. No one used the word villain. No one used the word hero. They spoke like people tired of being numb. Around midnight, a file landed in Jock's inbox from an unlisted address, a cache of time-coded edit notes. Some sharp, some banal, a few damning in how casually they instructed Hurt. He forwarded them to Rasheeda, who stared at the glow of her phone without opening the zip. She could feel the old reflex tug, the instinct to post, to prove, to fight through proof. Instead, she put the device face down and lay back in the quiet of her room, counting the breath in and the breath out until the drum of adrenaline finally slowed. Meanwhile, lawyers drafted, papers thickened, mediation dates materialized and moved. A rumor shot through the blogs that another franchise star from a different city was ready to speak. TikTok filled with duets of Rasheeda's milk crate statement, teenagers mouthing along to I'm not here to destroy, I'm here to heal like it was a hook. Late-night comics tried jokes and then softened them into monologues about dignity. An op-ed in a business paper asked whether reality TV had finally reached its triangle shirtwaist moment, when an industry's casual harms catch flame in public view and cannot be explained away by ratings. The Frost house ran quieter than usual. The kids moved through rooms like they were trying not to disturb a sleeping giant. In the kitchen, Rasheeda brewed tea and stared at the steam. Kirk hovered in the doorway, unsure whether his presence was a kindness or a trespass. I'll stay at the condo, he offered. She didn't answer right away. You'll do what you need to do, she said finally. So will I, this time without a producer telling us which scene comes next. At dawn, she met Jasmine at the boutique before opening hours. The store smelled like cedar cleaner and new denim. They walked the aisles in silence, the tags clicking softly against hangers. We shared the worst of ourselves on tape, Rasheeda said at last, brushing a sleeve smooth with her palm. Maybe we can share something better off it. Jasmine nodded, eyes wet, a small, relieved smile tugging at one corner of her mouth. They were not friends. They were not enemies. They were witnesses to one another's survival. And that was enough for now. By the weekend, a city permit cleared for a community forum at a downtown auditorium. No sponsors, no step and repeat, no exclusive broadcast rights. A pastor opened the doors and offered the sound system. The program read like a reversal of the reunion format. No couches, no verses, no commercial breaks. People stood at a single microphone and told their own stories of packaging pain for an audience and then not knowing how to live once the lights shut off. A young ex-cast member from a short-lived spin-off cried so hard her whole body shook. An older camera op admitted he'd learned to frame tears like jewelry because that's what the algorithms rewarded. When it was Rasheeda's turn, she didn't take the stage. She sat in the front row and asked the woman at the mic, "What do you need?" The woman answered, "A job where my sadness isn't content." Someone in back whispered, "Amen." The network announced a task force. The task force announced listening sessions. The internet rolled its eyes and kept receipts. A competing streamer pitched Rasheeda a docuseries about reinvention that promised control and final cut. She stared at the offer for a long time, then closed the email and wrote 3 words on a yellow pad: "No more cages." Mona retreated from public view for a week, then re-emerged with a glossy essay about ambition and responsibility. How she'd built a system that rewarded spectacle because spectacle kept the lights on for hundreds of families. She framed herself as a worker among workers, not a tyrant. She reminded readers of charity galas, internships, scholarships. The piece was smart. It was smooth. It skipped the van audio and the word again. The audience fractured further in its response, proving only that nothing breaks like a chorus trying to agree on the truth. And still, in a quieter corner of the city, the boutique opened each morning and closed each night. Customers came not to gawk but to buy, to hug, to say, "You helped me leave a man who wrote my lines, and you helped me call my mama back." Some days Rasheeda smiled and chatted. Some days she rang up a purchase and excused herself to the back to breathe through a memory. Healing did not trend. It barely loaded. On a Monday evening, long after the sun slipped down behind a rectangle of glass towers, she unlocked her phone and opened a new live room. No graphics, no countdown sticker, just her and soft light, a plant over her shoulder and the static hiss of an air vent. "I don't have a big statement," she said. "I just want to say I'm okay tonight. Not amazing, not broken. Okay." Comments poured in so quickly the words blurred. Hearts, prayers, inside jokes, apologies from strangers for laughing at scenes they understood differently now. "Take your time, one read. We'll be here." For once the algorithm agreed. She ended the live and set the phone down. Outside, a siren wailed, then faded. Somewhere, lawyers were still sharpening pens. Somewhere, an editor dragged a timeline scrubber over a clip and asked a colleague whether the crying looked authentic. Somewhere, 2 teenagers in another country repeated her noon sentence to each other and decided to film less and talk more. The world had not flipped. It had tilted, enough to let in another angle of light. Before sleep, she wrote a list of things the camera had never captured. The first laugh after a long silence. The weight of a child's head on her shoulder on a day it mattered. The smell of cinnamon when the house was loud and safe. The private decision to tell the truth even when no one was rolling. She closed the notebook and turned out the lamp. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. She had a voice whether or not someone rented it. In the morning, she woke to a text from Jasmine. "I'm at the forum early if you coming." Another from Jock. "Lawyers think mediation, first week next month. Don't worry, I'm not blinking." One from a number she didn't know that began, "You don't know me, but thank you for reminding me my life is not a storyline." She smiled without thinking, tied her hair back, and headed for the door. The city hummed. Headlines churned. People argued in comment threads about exploiters and enablers, about truth and spectacle, about how much any of them had a right to know. Let them argue. Let them learn. Let them hold up their phones and see themselves. She had stepped off the set. She had stepped into her life, and the cameras, for once, did not get the last word. The city's rhythm had shifted. What had started as a reunion meltdown had grown into a cultural storm that refused to quiet. Radio hosts dissected the scandal every morning, callers flooding the lines with their takes on Rasheeda, Kirk, Jasmine, and Mona. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to the unraveling of love and hip-hop, drawing connections between reality television, exploitation, and the cost of fame. College students quoted Rasheeda's "No more cages" on protest posters for causes that had nothing to do with music or TV. In the streets, people who had never watched an episode debated it like it was national news. For Rasheeda, the whirlwind was both surreal and exhausting. She had walked away from the show, but the show had followed her into every corner of her life. Every time she left her boutique, she found clusters of fans waiting outside, some wanting pictures, others wanting advice, a few simply wanting to hug her like a sister. She tried to smile, to thank them, to be gracious, but the attention felt heavy. Inside, she longed for silence. The one thing she had wanted most, privacy, was the hardest thing to hold on to now. Kirk, meanwhile, became a ghost. Paparazzi snapped him ducking into cars, wearing hoodies and caps pulled low. Rumors swirled about him moving into the condo permanently, about divorce papers being drawn up, about business deals collapsing. He posted a single message on Instagram, a black square with the words "taking accountability, working on myself." The comments split between anger and pity. Some fans roasted him with memes, others begged Rasheeda not to take him back, while a small corner prayed for reconciliation. But Kirk stayed silent after that, his once polished image shattered. Mona refused to vanish. Within a week, she returned to the airwaves with interviews and essays, reframing herself as misunderstood, a creator caught in a cultural shift. She insisted the show had always been about authenticity. "We never scripted pain," she told one magazine. "We revealed it. People can confuse the two, but truth is messy." Still, the shadow of that leaked audio and the call sheets haunted her. Fans didn't buy the excuses. Each time she spoke, the backlash grew sharper. Old cast members surfaced with their own story zines reshot multiple times, producers pushing them to cry, contracts that punished them for refusing dramatic confrontations. Suddenly, Mona was no longer just defending her empire. She was defending her legacy. At home, Rasheeda found herself wrestling with sleepless nights. Even with the world on her side, her heart was raw. Memories replayed like bad reruns. Kirk confessing on stage, Jasmine sobbing through apologies, Mona's eyes burning with fury. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced cameras were still rolling. She'd get up, walk the quiet house, and remind herself she was free. The silence was jarring, but it was hers. One evening, she gathered her closest circle, her mother, her kids, and a few friends around the dining table. No cameras, no producers, no staged arguments, just family. She cooked herself, something she hadn't done in months. And as the aroma of baked chicken and cornbread filled the air, she felt a sliver of peace. Her son looked at her across the table and said, "Mom, you seem lighter." Tears welled in her eyes. "That's because I'm finally breathing for me," she whispered. But the outside world refused to pause. A streaming platform offered Rasheeda her own docuseries, promising control and creative freedom. Another network dangled a talk show slot. A book agent emailed about memoir rights. Everywhere she turned, people wanted to turn her truth into content. Jock told her, "This is the moment, sis. You can cash out big." But Rasheeda hesitated. "I didn't burn one.